previous residents had also rejected it because they were asked to consider it by the central government, and all of them, until Caro came along, rejected it. And then I rejected radio. Caro saw, who was a very modernising officer, saw radio as, quote, a modern aid of progress. For him, radio was integral to fashioning the sort of modern citizen he wished to see. And he saw it really as his duty. And he decisively rejected the conclusion of previous residents and their arguments. And this is from a minute in the colonial record of radio. This is toward the British administration. I regard the matter of opening up the radio station as most important. I have to recall that I do not consider the opposition to public loudspeakers the key points to be found in previous comments in this file to be in any way final. Kano is a most important cosmopolitan trade centre. We certainly cannot oppose every modern development. It is our duty to teach the leaders the important value of such matters. For Caro, as the modernisation theory a generation later, as for digital divide theorists today, modern technologies make people modern. Not content with opening an RDS station in Kano, Caro went over the objections of the residents of Sokoto to advocate for the opening of the RDS station there. So northern Nigeria used to be a sultanate. The sultanate was based in Sokoto, and there's divided into other sorts of emirates. Kano is the most important economic centre, the most powerful centre, and it becomes more that way in colonial rule. But politically and symbolically and religiously, it's still nominally under the centre of Sokoto. So if you change in Kano, you should therefore have a change at the top as well. It's why he's agitating this. Quote, there is always a tendency for Sokoto, Gwandu, and Argungu to be parochial and wholly disinterested in matters outside their own area, he wrote to the provincial secretariat to do. Quote, the Sultan is a difficult enough task as it is to keep up without preventing him from obtaining such modern aids to progress as radio diffusion. End quote. In this modernising aim, Caro did not simply represent British interests, but also those of a young class of progressive Western trained Hausa elites. These were outside of the traditional royal and trading hierarchies. They were that fraction of Hausa society literate in English, expansive in their Islamic practice, and oriented more to new movements in the Middle East as much as the traditional Hausa Islam. So in the 2 decades after this, they're the people who will begin the Salafic revival in Nigeria. They will dislodge existing ways of practicing Islam by their experience of modes of Islam from other parts of the world, probably most importantly from the Middle East and from the Gulf states. So they're both the Western side of the Islamic clerisy, but they're also those who, through that Westernization, come to be, in a sense, the most Salafi-minded group. For those who are interested. So one can see these issues at stake in the meeting between Caro and Abdoulaye Bayo. Emir. Oh, those young mans have been getting at you, have they? And he's referring to the demand for, having a radio station. Resident. I wouldn't say that. But why can't you agree? It sounds like a reasonable request. The Emir. You know nothing whatsoever about the Holy Quran or the proprieties when it's being read. If you will keep quiet and let me speak, I will explain things to you. Very well, I'm listening. It is not correct that just anybody should read from the Holy Quran. Only a properly qualified man of irreproachable character. London is miles and miles away. How do I know who the BBC employed to give these readings? He may be someone quite unsuitable and of bad character. I understand your point, but I can assure you that Waziri Churchill would never allow the BBC to employ an unsuitable man to do these readings from the Quran. Very well, I accept this assurance. Excuse me. But there's another point. Some of the boxes are in loudspeakers, or in public and open courtyards. The words in the Holy Quran might be coming out of the boxes, and most irregular things might be going on around. Dancing, swearing, people walking about, and so on. Resident. But that's too easy. If at any time the readings are coming out, and it's not convenient for those around to listen, then all that is necessary is for someone to put up his hand and turn off a little switch, and the reading will stop. What a suggestion. The holy words are coming forth, and you suggest that someone should turn the machine off, thereby showing he doesn't want wish to listen. That would be worse than anything. To mediate the Quran famously involves a host of questions brought about by the particular sacred quality of the Quran itself. The holy text is surrounded by a host of special factors. One should not read it in a state of pollution. You should use your right hand, not your left hand. You should keep the text above other texts, and so on and so forth. There's a whole series. And that's because of the sense that the Quran is not just a text. It's not just a signifier, a relay to something else where it contains presence. So because of that, it is a very particular text that cannot be pushed to one side. And that's at stake in this sort of conflict. To use the Quran involves a host of cultivated practices laid down in Islamic law, and which form part of the way that religion as a tradition disciplines, shapes, and creates the conditions of possibility for bodily states and ethical actions. Charles Hirschkin has recently examined these issues in relation to listening to the Quran in particular. And I find Hirschkin's work, and many work in this. The reason I'm interested in this work is because it then makes this powerful argument back to the technicist theories of media. That implicit secularization argument is part of that, cannot be maintained in the face of other sorts of traditions of work. And we see this in this conflict over mediating the Quran. So for Hirschkin, to listen to the Quran requires a proper bodily state. It requires a mode of ethical self-discipline, as he calls it. So he explores religion's role in fashioning the human sensorium, in training modes of affect, into sensibilities, perceptual habits, and so on and so forth. And his interest is in that Sadian mode, Sabamakul, Charles Hirschkin, to look back to the role of religion as a tradition in creating these sorts of powerful forms that shape religious subjects. But in some sense, they're about this everyday cultivation that create us as subjects in the world. And so they act upon the subjects in fashioning these sorts of sensibilities, these perceptions, and so on and so forth. Hirschkin looks particularly at cassette sermons. And so his interest is in the role of listening, which is not an act that, I'm sure people are very familiar with this argument, but one does not listen with one's ears, one listens with one's heart. It's a sort of a practice one works at. You may listen better one day, you may listen less better. It's something you keep practicing every day. You have to be in a proper state. So when the Quran is when you go to listen to the Quran, you could, usefully put other things aside. Focus your mind. Stop worrying about who did the washing up last night. Stop worrying about what's going on at work. Clear your mind. Get ready. Open your heart and listen with your heart. Create the proper bodily affect. We mark that symbolically by sort of ablutions of going into a mosque, or if we can control those ritual spaces. But then the practice of listening for Hirschkin is about what it tells us about these religious disciplines, these traditions that create listening as an act. This is something that technicist media theory cannot do in a certain response, a certain sense. So what Hirschkin does is he shows how imbricated religion and media are, and he lays out how cassette sermons draw on a traditional religious practice that shape the body, much in the way that Benjamin, McLuhan, and Virilio argue for media. But what Hirschkin doesn't do is address how the medium does exactly the same thing, how the medium is involved in the same work. And so we have this situation in which, yes, religion isn't good. We can usefully dislodge the centrality of media theory by taking into this disciplinary practice within religion. But the counter is true. The radio or the cassette also has its own determinators. It also does its own work, which you can't neatly put aside. We have to take that into account. And this is what we see, and this is, it comes up very particularly in the moments when media technologies are introduced, when they're new, when they're not taken for granted, and when the instability, the epistemic instability, the social instability about what they are in a sense up for grabs. So you get these overt forms of definitional elaboration around them. So to return to that debate, the encoding of the Quran into the new media of radio waves and wired relay is an act of circulation across media platforms and across space. Abdullahi's objections emerged from a deep suspicion of British intentions shared by many in Nigeria at the time, and voicing his arguments on the grounds of religion was the safest and strongest way to make his case. You always have to be wary about the argument of religion in the context of colonialism, because A, it could be the expression of a sort of particular conservative religious worldview, but also religion was the category whereby you could make legitimate claims against the colonial regime. The British said, we will take care of secular world, we will reserve the religious domain to you. So if you want to oppose a power station in your backyard, you can't oppose it on secular ground. You have to oppose it on religious ground. That's the only legitimacy you have. So there's always, it's just an issue you have to take into account in reading these archives. Abdullahi makes his argument on the grounds of the material nature of the object itself. Radio separates data stream from body. When the Emir questions, how do I know the character of the person reciting? He recognizes that the sound of recitation is being loose in the embodied, socially rooted voice of the reciter. In the past, this would be someone whose family he knows. So it's not just the person, he would know the entire family. It would probably be passed